can dance if we want to. We can leave your friends behind.
You know what that means, ladies and gentlemen? It's Wednesday at 8:05. That means it's time for my sister, my friend, Carolyn Bordeaux. She's a former Democrat congresswoman out of Gwinnett County, and she joins me every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And it's almost to the point now, Carolyn, we've got to do a podcast or something.
Hey, yes.
I mean, because
we should.
I've got to tell you something, because every time you're on here, you break news. Every single time you break news, and I post it or I send it out, and other people pick it up. And it's interesting to me because other people pick it up, and then you say something on Wednesday, and you write an article in the AJC. And it's kind of just a softer version of what you said on my show on Wednesday, because that's what happened this past Sunday. Talk to us about the op-ed before we get into Texas and everything else.
Oh, well, which one? So the op-ed I wrote about the election results and sort of what?
Yes, ma'am.
That one, yes. Okay, so I broke down what we talked about last week. You know, who tends to win in Democratic primaries in Georgia. The electorate is 60% female. It is this time it was around 58% of black voters, and so it has a real strong preference for female over male candidates, and you see that all up and down the ballot, and has some preference, a little less strong perhaps, but for black candidates over white candidates, and it has a preference. You know, just the people are voting on their what they want to see in terms of leadership, incumbents, right? And so if you look down the ballot, it's not perfect, but you can see that tendency pretty strongly as people are voting, and the last week's primary very much reflected those preferences.
Absolutely. And now what happens, though? You kind of had a conclusion, or you kind of left a conclusion hanging. What, in your opinion, happens because of this? Or do you think will happen?
Well, yes. So what we end up with, we end up with statewide, again, not entirely, but we end up with very heavily black women, right, becoming the nominees in the Democratic primaries. And then, Republicans have the reverse, right? And so they end up with white men as their nominees. Again, it's not perfect,
right?
But it is, you have this tendency and preference. And as a result, if you look at our legislature, it has a very significant contingent of white men who run everything and black women who are very, very powerful in the Democratic Party.
Absolutely. And it was a great op-ed piece. So let's go to Texas now. Paxton, first of all, let me ask you this question. We kind of touched on it when Tallarico was running against Crockett. Who do you think would have been, knowing that Paxton is the winner, right? Who do you think would have been a better candidate against Paxton for your side in Texas, Crockett or Tallarico?
Well, probably Tallarico. Texas is demographically different from Georgia. Its electorate is 40% Hispanic, which has different voting patterns. And so it's a bit of a different mix. Jasmine Crockett, of course, is a firebrand,
right,
sharp talking, smack down, kind of woman, and is very, very popular, particularly with the left. Tallarico is a bit more of, he's very progressive in a lot of his views, but he's much more what do they call it in political ease? Moderate coded.
So let me ask you this. So that being said, right? That being said, do you think that firebrand can generate more excitement than the moderate, whatever term you just used?
Yeah, moderate coded person. I mean, I have to say, Democrats are crazy for Tallarico. I think I mentioned this, like some of my old campaign staff work for him. I don't know how many of, young people who have, I talk to are like, oh my goodness, he is just so amazing. He's so great. He delivers a great speech. He's got like a photographic memory. So he's really exciting people. People are very, very excited about him.
Now, let me say this, and this is you and I, we're friends. We can go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a Beto O'Rourke situation? Because people were excited about him twice, I think, or very excited about him. Do you think it's the same situation?
Well, to be determined. However, Republicans have just done Democrats a huge favor by nominating Ken Paxton
So talk
and
about
defeating
now,
John Cornyn.
Right.
And
so talk about that. Talk
yeah.
about that.
Okay. So, Paxton has a number of very, very serious ethics charges. He has had affairs. He has been accused of bribery with respect to the affairs that he's had to help the woman he's having an affair with get jobs, all sorts of just crazy things like this. And the Republicans actually just spent many months running extremely negative ads against him. And I always think Republicans do a better job of this than Democrats. And among my Democratic friends, all of those Republican ads are now circulating on
Right.
Democratic Facebook, feeds and Instagram and places like that.
And so all of that being said, you think the Republicans handed the Democrats a gift in Paxton and not Cornyn, the incumbent?
They and I think everybody not knows this, who's watching what's going on in Texas. Now, is it a shoe-in for Tallarico? No, right? Go back to the Beto O'Rourke example. That being said, there are two huge trends, right, that are favoring the Democrats in Texas. One is that Paxton is going to be really easy to run against and to really tar heavily with the corruption charges. He was impeached by the Republican legislature.
Right.
I mean, that's how crazy this is. And then, but the other big thing is what the president is doing on immigration issues.
Right.
It's like he's got a steel whip and he is driving the Hispanic voters into the arms of the Democrats.
Absolutely.
And
in Texas, Hispanic Latino voters in Texas, these are who said that these are voters who voted for Trump. A poll
That's
of
right.
3,000
A lot of
registered
them.
Latino voters. They're D plus 26 now.
That's right. Yeah, and that they make up 40% of the Texas electorate. So, when you have things like immigration and customs, racially profiling, quote unquote, Hispanic people, right, and just scooping them up, right? This is 40% of the population of Texas.
Right.
These are good Americans here,
Right.
and they are being profiled in this way, and they are also swing voters. And so, so there are two huge trends that are moving very heavily against Republicans right now.
So your guys, last night, you guys were watching returns pretty much just cheering, yes, 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 when Paxton numbers were coming in. Is that what I'm
Yes,
hearing?
I actually called a friend of mine who is a pretty significant political operative in the Democratic Party, and yes, she was actually the first to tell me. She says, AP hasn't called it yet, but I know it's happening, and it's such a good night. So
That's good.
Yes.
That's good. That's good breakdown. I was going to bring up the Hispanics, but you did. But in Texas, just for my audience, just for people listening, and this is a Unidos US BSP Research Shore Company poll of 3,000 Hispanic registered voters who all voted for Trump. I believe that part is true too. But they voted, and these are Hispanic. Finds that 1 in 4 Hispanic Trump voters said they would not vote for him again if given a choice right now. That's 25%. And now they favor Democrats 54% and Republicans 28%. So that swing has a Democrat plus 26.
Yep. And we saw that also in the primary in Georgia. Hispanic population makes up a much smaller share in Georgia, but similarly, a lot more of those voters were pulling the Democratic ballots in the primary. A lot more than have done that in the 2024 election.
Well, we'll see. One of the things that I said earlier, we talked about this. I know we usually have to stop around, but I want to just go a couple minutes over, Carolyn. I talked about earlier in the show Tallarico's progressive religious faith, and Republicans are going after him. He said God was binary, and will Hispanics who are traditionally very religious, will he appeal to them without just completely saying, I never said that? Like, will they look over that because of the other things are more important to them?
I think they're going to overlook it in this situation. I think, yes, if it had been John Cornyn, I think still the Republicans would have had a problem with the Hispanic voters. And they are very strong swing voters. And I know this. I worked with several members of Congress, Henry Cuellar, Jacinta Gonzalez, Phil Vela, all of whom were like congressmen who represented those border Hispanic districts. They were very conservative. They knew their constituents were very conservative, and all of that is shifting. I don't think Talarico's religious message particularly appeals to them, but it appeals to them that he is not, rounding up their friends and family and throwing them into prison.
I gotta. I'm sorry, but that is it's such an obvious thing. I just had to get it out, and you said it in the best way possible. Carolyn Bordeaux, my good friend, former Congresswoman out of Gwinnett County. Thank you for joining me every Wednesday. I will talk to you soon. Oh, by the way, you wanted to say something about my picture with Senator Ossoff.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on as always. But yes, I saw the picture of you with John Ossoff. Your buddies.
Oh,
He's a good guy. He's a nice guy.
He's a very good guy. And I gotta tell you how good he is at what he does. I got a call. I got a call from him this morning. And it was to say, "Great to see you at the Jazz Festival." And the next thing out of his mouth was, and I want everybody to hear this. It was, "I'm going to earn your vote."
Oh.
And that's what he said to me. That's what he said to me. "I'm going to earn your vote." It wasn't calling me to tell me wild stories. It was, hey, it was great to see you at the Jazz Festival, and I'm letting you know personally, I want to make this call myself. His words, not mine. "I'm going to earn your vote."
Fantastic.
And you got to respect that. I don't care who you are. You got to respect that. If you're not on a plan, I'm not going to say all of that, but if you got to respect that. No, you have to respect it. Have a good night, my sister. I will talk to you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.